So, we can't perform for you on stage. It's been an interesting time to figure out what we can do to keep in touch with all of you, to keep attracting singers and art lovers, music lovers to our work when we can't do what we do best, which is perform live. What we can do in the digital world is try to tell a story, try to give you a behind-the-scenes, intimate look at what we do, who we are, and why we're passionate about the music we do. On stage, what makes it special is that we have to actively listen. It's the attention we commit to the performance that makes it special. Perhaps we can recreate that with this kind of concert-mentory, if you will. If you want to support our work, I hope you will buy a virtual ticket. Your money goes to help support the singers we employ for all of our projects, and it helps us going forward in our planning as we sort of struggle through this pandemic and try to think of, as we brainstorm new ways to bring our music to you. Thanks again, and I hope you enjoy the show. This is so I know how to sync all of our mics. Ow, that was very loud.
That was quite loud.
That was very loud, wasn't it?
Yes.
Oh,
yeah. My band teacher would do that to get our attention. Thanks everyone for being here. Has anyone sung in a group since COVID started? Oh, everybody. Oh, okay.
No,
okay.
Not at all.
Well, it's nice to get together again, and thank you for doing all of the things that we needed to do to make this happen. And it could have been a worse day. 100% chance of rain at our first location. Really happy to be here on Vashon with it not raining right now. We will move to a second location where we will do our rehearsing. And actually, another change of plans, we're going to rehearse and record at that second location. And then we'll have a break and then we will do our interviews. And then, after lunch and interviews, we will make our way down to the shore, which will hopefully be, there'll be enough shore to do our filming. And Lauren, you want to say a few words about the program, about the music we're doing?
Yes. So we love our shapenote, obviously. And as we were putting together the idea for the season, TJ said, I just want to sing on a mountain. And so we were like, oh, this is what we can do. And we thought that the sea would be the best place for shapenote. It's kind of thunderous and loud and crashing and roaring. So we have a program of shapenote today and some billings, and we'll do some of the fossil law sections. It's mostly very raucous. There's a couple of lighter pieces for contrast. And what I'm really excited about is that we are getting to do shapenote that is not only Christmas related, because we often are only doing shapenote at Christmas. And so we get to explore some of the other pieces that there are.
Hey, Tim.
What's up?
Thanks for grabbing my stand.
You're so welcome. Anything I can do to help? This is the little moments of color that's really going to make this come alive.
Oh yeah, Sundance. I'm thinking Sundance.
I think it's always interesting to see a group of people come together with a common purpose and their own individual way of working towards it. So I think in rehearsals there's a good mix of people who are here to work and are like ready and got their stuff together, and other people who are here to like have a good time. And that mix of personalities is always really fascinating to watch play out in a rehearsal. I feel like I'm always the one that's like not paying attention, or, you know, is just like making stupid jokes. Although there's a lot of stupid jokes flying around in Radiance rehearsals, I think that's safe to say.
Any questions? Kevin.
Why isn't By the Sea from Sweeney Todd on the program?
Kevin, you'll have to take that up with me after rehearsal.
Okay.
Jakob, is your lapel mic still working?
Hello, Mark in the future.
I often feel that
There is a land.
Yeah, the Radiance rehearsals are a little bit, they can be a little rough and ready, because we really only have usually 2 or 3 rehearsals per show.
The first one is really to get our singing parts together, make sure our singing partner, we know how to work with each other, get familiar with the music, figure out all the tempos.
So you're really expected to come with your notes learned, and it helps us, not take up as much of the musician's time, which, makes the gig more worthwhile for them based on what we're able to pay them.
For such a small ensemble, it's really important that you stand out and that you sing with presence and that you cut through the texture. However, that also makes you feel really vulnerable, because you're sort of putting yourself in a spotlight. And there's more pressure not to suck when you can't just like blend in to your section.
Sight reading as a professional musician is a really important skill to have. Often with certain types of gigs, you'll get paid for some amount of prep time by the hour, and so the less time you have to spend learning your notes, the more efficient that money is for you, right? Because you're not spending a lot of extra hours beyond what you're being paid for to learn your notes.
I think one of the things that is really useful about Radiance, something that we're all really good at, I'd say, is taking notes well. It can feel really personal. It can feel really destabilizing when you have been told that you've made a mistake or that you should sing something differently because it would sound better than what you just did. And the biggest thing is just to know that it's not personal. It's not about you as a person, as a human being, and it's only to make the overall music better.
Let's connect also measure 21, tenors and basses. And at 44, let's give a little more meat there. Death like a narrow sea. Just good words there. Narrow sea. It's always hard to know when it's too much.
One of the things I really appreciate about Mark's direction is the level of calm and the pleasant atmosphere of Radiance. You know, there are many, many directors who take a much heavier hand and are angry, use frustration as a tool to try and motivate singers, and that is not Mark's style at all. Mark wants to keep the rehearsal pleasant and enjoyable, and I really think that that's valuable for us as people. I think it's valuable for keeping the music alive and keeping the music feeling fresh and inspired, and not laborious.
So I've got my 1991 Denton Sacred Harp here. This is the source that a lot of our music comes from that we're singing today. It's an early American choir book. The first one I think was published right before the turn of the 19th century, so like 1770s, 1780s. And the cool thing about it, why we call this music shapenote, is that the music is literally, instead of the normal note heads that you see on modern music, they're in shapes. And that was developed to help people learn how to sight read, so that people could just show up at church and be able to read this music. And when you hear us singing a kind of solfege, but with only the syllables fa, sol, la, and mi, that's based on this system. And so you can see that the triangle notes are fa, and fa is used for the root and the fourth, and then so is the second and the fifth. So it goes fa, sol, la, mi, fa, up the scale. And actually, you can get one of these books. They're only $15 or $20 online. And if you're a singer, you can try reading this, and it's actually you'll find it's very easy to sight read, because your brain can really intuitively learn which shapes go with which syllables. I was really surprised how fast I was able to learn it. So yeah, that's the Sacred Harp.
Our idea for the program today came mostly from a seed of an idea from TJ Callahan, who just said he wanted to sing on a mountain somewhere. And we thought, why don't we take each program to a different place in the Pacific Northwest in nature? And for this program, we went to the sea. And we did that because shape note music, which has become a staple of what we do in Radiance, is very raucous and brassy and big, and we thought that it would pair really nicely with the sea, with the waves and the crashing and the sort of violence, but simultaneously it can also become calm and become soft and gentle. And this program really reflects that really nicely. We have some big fa sol la pieces that are just rah at you, and we have some gentler, softer, more lullaby type pieces. The program is really anchored by Euroclydon, which is a setting of They That Go Down to the Sea in Ships. It's an ode to mariners, to people who work at sea, and it talks about sort of all the different things that happen while you're at sea, the storms, the calms, the joy, the despair. And, it ends with this sort of beautiful welcome home, with friends and family on the wharf gathered to welcome them back ashore.
They that go down, they that go down to the sea, and occupy their business in great waters. These men see, these men see, these men see, these men see. They reel and stagger.
They reel and stagger.
They reel and stagger. They reel and stagger. They stagger to and fro like a drunken man, and are at their wits' end. Then they cry unto God in their trouble, and He bringeth them out of their distresses. He maketh the storm a calm, so that the waves are still, so that the waves are still, are still, are still, so that the waves are still. Then they are glad, because they are quiet, because they are quiet. Then they are glad, because they are quiet. And He bringeth the vessel into port, and He bringeth the vessel into port. And all hands up, their friends assembled on the wharf to welcome them on shore. And all hands up, welcome, here again, welcome here again, welcome home, welcome home. There is a land of pure delight where saints immortal reign. Infinite day excludes the night, and pleasures banish pain. Sweet fields beyond the swelling flood stand dressed in living green. So to the Jews old Canaan stood, while Jordan rolled between. Sweet fields beyond the swelling flood stand dressed in living green. So to the Jews old Canaan stood, while Jordan rolled between. Their everlasting spring abides, and never withering flowers. Death like a narrow sea divides this heavenly land from ours. But timorous mortals start and shrink to cross this narrow sea, and linger shivering on the brink, and fear to launch away. But timorous mortals start and shrink to cross this narrow sea, and linger shivering on the brink, and fear to launch away. Oh, could we make our doubts remove, those gloomy doubts that rise, and see the Canaan that we love with unbeclouded should fright us from the shore.
One of the things I really love about this music is the poetry and the way that it uses biblical text, especially Old Testament, really fire and brimstone kind of stuff, to talk about concepts that are deeply human, that everyone can really strongly relate to. Maybe more so if you have been exposed to scripture growing up. You know, one of the themes that comes up a lot in this program is the River Jordan, which is called the Narrow Sea. So even though a river is not a sea, it's considered a sea because of its grandiosity and how powerful it is. And it's also used as a metaphor for death, for crossing over from this life to the next. It accesses the very familiar story, the Exodus story, of the Jews leaving Egypt, crossing the River Jordan, going into Canaan, into the land of milk and honey, the promised land, using that as heaven. And the River Jordan is frightful. It's terrifying, the prospect of having to cross this thing, but we do it because we know what the promise is on the other side. And that's something that draws on people's experiences with Scripture, and for a lot of people who may not necessarily be religious or still practice the religion that they grew up in, there's still this familiarity of the story that is also very human, whether or not you believe in the afterlife. Another thing that this music does really well is it condenses a lot of meaning into a very short phrase, into using short words, simple words, and very punchy phrases. There's this phrase, death's cold flood. Bam, bam, bam.
Nor death's cold flood should fright us from the shore.
Single syllable words, but every single word is loaded with meaning, and there's such depth of meaning there. And of course, it refers back the cold flood of the River Jordan as death. It sort of ties all these images of nature back to the human condition, and something that we all will inevitably go through. Another phrase that I love from that same piece: linger shivering on the brink. The brink! You know, the bank of the river, and you see it and you're terrified.
Broad is the road that leads to death, and thousands walk together there. But wisdom shows a narrow path, with here and there a traveler.
There's this line in Hear My Prayer, O Lord my God. Hold not thy peace at my tears. You know, don't sit there calmly as I'm racked with sorrow. Hold not thy peace at my tears. Every single one of those words is a single syllable. And that one ends, before I go hence and be no more seen. Before I go hence and be no more seen. I mean, it's just such a beautiful way to articulate something. That's one of the things that I really, really love about this music.
Hear my prayer, O Lord my God. Consider my calling. Consider my calling. Hold not thy peace at my tears. Hold not thy peace at my tears. For I am a stranger with thee, and a sojourner, as all my fathers were. Oh, spare me a little, oh, spare me a little while, that I may recover, that I may recover my strength, before I go hence and be no more seen, before I go hence and be no more seen. Oh, spare me a little, oh, spare me a little while, that I may recover, that I may recover my strength, before I go hence and be no more seen, before I go hence and be no more seen.
So, one of the reasons I love shapenote is because I sing alto, and it's a very raucous, shouty, belty kind of sound. It's one of the lines that is sort of the most raw sounding in the texture.
In a way, you're almost asked to like forget some of your training and just yell for a bit. It's something you have to do very carefully to do it in a vocally healthy way. So there's still an amount of support that happens.
It certainly uses a sort of timbre in the tenor register that I'm not used to using in many places.
Shape note singing as a soprano is not as glorious as shape note singing as a tenor or alto. It's one of the few times when the soprano line fades more into the background than the inner parts.
It is hard for me to sing in proper shape note style up high, but I feel like you have to sing more forward and like more forcefully, and that just takes a different amount of breath support, and having not sung for 6-7 months, it's a little different.
Some sopranos do have a sort of secondary role as sort of beefing up the tenor line, I guess, or just making it more audible. Often in shape note singing, the tenor line is where the melody is, and just for extra emphasis, some pieces swap a tenor and a soprano so that they can just make it more audible in the mix. So I get to do some of that this time, which is really fun.
Can you take your chest voice as high as the altos?
No. In fact, I can take my head voice lower than many sopranos, I think. It's easier for me to sing in head voice the whole time. I don't feel like shape note singing requires a soprano to shout in her chest voice as much as it requires an alto to. I never use my chest voice in shape note singing, but I don't feel like that's the calling of the soprano in shape notes.
Can you make a sample bright sound?
Oh, yeah.
Like how would you sing normal choral music versus...
Oh, okay. Normal choral music, I would sing it. Ah. And with shape note singing, I would just make it pingier. Ah. But that's still somehow my head voice.
But all the placement goes right here, right? And so it becomes extremely forward and direct and nasally and raw.
The super bright, almost nasal kind of sound is pretty great. It's also for most of my choral career, I have sung mostly things in more of the British tradition with a very proper pronunciation, and actually leaning into the sort of more colloquial speech-like patterns of shape note is also, it's a fun and interesting experience. And it's also, you know, shape note, apart from the technical challenges with the actual voice production, the music is not that hard, so the sight reading is easy and it's a lot of fun. So it's a blast. I think it was literally one of the examples of you should not do this. And yeah, I think, you know, gaining an awareness of sort of how you control your soft palate and the resonant space in your head helps you find that spot without incurring injury. Because you can definitely overdo it, and I think the first time I did this I maybe overdid it a little bit and was hoarse or so for a day, but figured it out and now it's pretty good.
So one of the really important things when you're singing these alto lines is to make sure that you're delivering it authentically and in a very boisterous way, but not in a way that's a caricature or a joke, because these group sings are real community practices that happen. You know, in these shape note sings, you have these 4 parts sitting in a square, all facing the middle, and the leader is, you know, keeping time up and down, and the altos are just hollering their heads off, and it sounds often very scoopy. You know, you can do a scoop like Saints Immortal Reign, but you don't want to overdo it. You don't want to overuse the scoop, and you don't want to sound like it's a parody. Something that's really special about Radiance is the way that the people who all work together on Radiance complement each other's skills so nicely.
Radiance is a wonderful group of people. I think it's fun to make music with people that I legitimately enjoy being around, which is nice.
It's really valuable within Radiance to have people who are such multifaceted members of leadership. Julia, for example, is a singer, a musician, as well as a marketing person, an administrator, and she really, it's so rare to be able to connect all of those different pieces together into one person and bring all of those different skill sets into something so uniquely qualified for this exact work. She's an invaluable member of the Radiance leadership.
Well, Kevin is my partner on my voice part. He and I have sung together all the time since he came up here a couple of years ago. He's just like a rock solid singer. He and I are, I think, I'll take the liberty of saying that we're a pretty solid duo on the low end. His tuning is like immaculate. He's just always prepared. And he's a great guy. He's really fun to sing with. Yeah.
TJ's great. I really like singing with TJ. I think, is he here? Can he hear me? Yeah, TJ is just an outstanding musician, really fun person to sing with and really fun person to be around.
I'm so lucky to be able to draw on so many skills that our singers in Radiance have. It takes more and more time these days to produce film and audio and digital content for social media, and I am lucky to have a talented group of people eager and willing to be a part of this and to help create. One of the singers, Teresa Clark, I've known her for a long time. She has one of the most unique alto voices I've ever heard. It's naturally bright, but it doesn't have that kind of shouted quality that that sometimes is called for in shape note music. It makes her incredibly useful for traditional choral singing as well as shape note singing.
Tim is one of our tenors, and he just has a really lovely, easy sound. One of the great things about Tim is that as a music teacher, he has just really great ideas for rep about what's happening like right now in choral music, locally and just around the country, which is something that's really important since we're trying to have a focus on American choral music and American contemporary choral music.
Margaret and I have sung together basically since I first moved out here. I first auditioned for Mark Daven in the early spring of 2015, and she was there, and I sang with her at that time, and it's pretty much been like that ever since. Margaret has like an amazing pure soprano voice. I am full of soprano envy, even though I'm a low bass. I always wish I could be singing the soprano parts. And she's just really cool to be around. She knows like everything about the outdoors out here. We've been hiking together a couple times. Yeah, she's a great person to know.
I think what Jakob really brings to the table in Radiance is his really warm, rich tone. He has such a beautiful voice, really. His instrument is just gorgeous. He also brings this very fun, cheerful energy to rehearsal and to the group. And he is quite the pun master, if I do say so myself.
Lauren Castanas is one of our most important players in the group. She is our board president and comes with an incredible set of skills. She is a singer, a composer, an arranger, and is very involved in the a cappella world and has her own group, girl band. The most important thing she brings to the table is a constant reminder of why we do what we do. It's easy to get caught up in all the logistics, all the planning, and the technical, creative stuff, and to lose sight of the passion behind our work and why we do this. And she always brings that front and center to everything we do. And we are so lucky to have that constant reminder, especially these days.
So I'm a music teacher at a small independent school in Seattle. And since everything has been online this year, it's been really sort of saving me to have opportunities to make music in person. I think, seeing how challenging it is, especially for my students, to not be able to like sing together or actually even like rehearse anything. The opportunity to get to do this is really special.
It's pretty wild. I thought that I would feel sort of emotional about it, and I did. There was a moment singing Sweet Prospect that sort of choked me up at the end where it talks about sickness and health, pain and death. Yeah, and I mean, it feels really good to be here with everyone. I think there's something about it that makes me feel like a little, like it feels a little wrong, or makes me feel a little guilty to be in this like group of friends again. Yeah, I'm just thinking a lot today how I hope that people seeing this later, that it doesn't like further like the normalization of being in groups of people through however much more of this we have. But it feels pretty amazing to get to do this today with everyone. I'm glad that I'm here.
I have missed group singing in COVID. I am fortunate to be somebody who pre-COVID had a fair amount of experience with recording tech, and so I have managed to keep that up, that part of my life up, but it's really good to be back. I did one experiment with one of these programs, that these low latency sing together over the internet programs, but like it's low latency is still too much latency when it's over the internet, and so it's just not, yeah, but we do what we have to, right? Because like singing is a huge part of my life, and I'm just grateful that I only have to give up part of it, not all of it, right?
I'm thinking about life and art and music, and whether the meaning we get from all those things comes not from its intrinsic value, but in the connections that we make about the art itself, from our past and from our history and from what we know already. And later, the things that will make those connections as we're looking back on the art in the future in what we do. In thinking about shapenote, for example, a lot of the meaning comes from drawing on themes and images that we know from our upbringings and from our religions that we were raised with, the characters and the places that show up. Shapenote uses a lot of like Old Testament imagery, the Jews and Canaan and the Promised Land and crossing the River Jordan. You think about what makes something beautiful and meaningful. I think the struggle is, how do you communicate through art? How do you make meaning both for yourself and for other people? Because the things that are important and meaningful to you, to some extent, will touch others, but there's a lot that goes on for other people that you have no idea about. So you sort of have to find this balance, and I think that stems directly from who we are as a whole, who we are together. How much do we as people, as individual, beings, even matter? I mean, our sense of meaning seems to draw almost entirely from a life lived in relationship with others. I mean, we look at a sunset, we look at a tree, we look at a flower, and are any of those things inherently beautiful without any of the context? I don't know. But can we make something that other people care about? Not just that other people will pay to see, but that will matter to them, that will be beautiful.
On Jordan's stormy banks I stand and cast a wishful eye to Canaan's fair and happy land, where my possessions lie. Oh, the transporting rapturous scene that rises to my sight, sweet fields arrayed in living green, and rivers of delight. O'er all those wide extended plains shines one eternal day. There God the Son forever reigns and scatters night away. Oh, the transporting rapturous scene that rises to my sight, sweet fields arrayed in living green, and rivers of delight. No chilling winds or poisonous breath can reach that healthful shore. Sickness and sorrow, pain and death are felt and feared no more. Oh, the transporting rapturous scene that rises to my sight, sweet fields arrayed in living green, and rivers of delight.
I feel pretty good. My toes are a little chilly, but it was really lovely to get to sing with everybody. That was like just a very heartwarming and like soul warming also feeling. And it's a beautiful spot, and we're really lucky to have this beautiful beach right here in our back door, Pacific Northwest. So.
I learned that I have not had a sustained singing session for a while, so my voice is pretty tired.
Yeah, I think today went really well. It ran a little long, just like pretty much everything does. But everyone sounded really good. People came prepared. We all had a really good time. Most of us haven't sung together in months, and so that was really fun. And singing this shapenote music is always really thrilling. While we were recording down there singing Euroclydon, I was definitely like, oh yeah, this is really cool. Because we were singing stuff like, just the words are so like evocative of the sea, and yeah, it was really fun to like do it right on the shore. I was like, this is exactly what I had in mind. So that was a really cool feeling.
Oh, it was amazing. Yeah. It's possible to do this. I wasn't sure if it would be. Yeah, I'm very cold, but grateful to be dry.
I was surprised a little bit by just the recording process is definitely, there were a lot of steps. We rehearsed, then we recorded the audio a little bit further from the waves, and we did another recording down close to the beach. So there's just a lot of steps, and I'm very I'm glad we have so many dedicated folks doing that, so that's wonderful.
And I learned that Mark Damon is a little technological genius, because there were a lot of moving parts and different takes and filming and recording and all of that, and it's all going to turn into a fabulous product that I'm excited to hear and see.
There are so many different like logistical challenges and variables to consider that people had to do a lot of planning around, like you. So yeah, I'm just impressed that it sort of came together and that it worked.
For other groups who might do like outdoor recordings, what would you recommend to them?
Definitely make sure that you take every available precaution. We all want to get back out there. We all want to be making music, but it's not worth it if you're not keeping everyone safe. As you saw in the video, like we were recording 10 feet apart, and made sure everyone got tested. It's all worth it to make sure that you can ensure everyone's safety. Also plan rep that doesn't have to be sung with too much subtlety, just because like when you're outdoors you can't control all the noise, and so it's easier when you do stuff like this that's a little bit more straightforward.
We saw a seal. That was a surprise and was awesome.
Very good.
"'Tis by thy strength the mountains stand, God of eternal power. The sea, the sea, the sea, the sea, spiteful tempest cease to roar, and tempest cease to roar. Seasons and times and moons and hours, heaven, earth, and air are thine. When clouds, when clouds, when clouds, when clouds, when showers, the author is divine. Now he